Fantastic. Bendigedig. Right, so not with our peg. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Gwent Youth Question Time. I'm Jane Murd, I'm the Peace and Crime Commissioner for Gwent. I'm really delighted to be here with you this evening, and this is my first Youth Question Time here in Gwent, so I'm really excited about this. And it's so good to see so many people, young people from across Gwent coming here to be part of this today. I have to do some housekeeping first of all, so you will all have been to events where people do this. So there's no planned fire drill this evening. If the alarm sounds, please leave through the designated fire exits. The toilets are just outside the theatre. Tonight's event is being photographed and filmed, and if you don't want to appear on camera, please speak to a member of the team, and they will make sure that that doesn't happen. We're really happy for you to post on social media, but can you just switch your phones to silent? And if you do post, don't forget to tag @GwentPCC and use the hashtag GwentYQT to 2026. We want you to have a really good time this evening, but what's more important than that, we want you to get some really good answers to the questions that I know you've been thinking about from our panellists. So it's important to us that when we do put on events and we work with our partners, that these events really work for you, for the people that come along. So please give us some feedback at the end and add your email address to it. And one lucky winner, I understand, will win a £50 voucher. So please do that and pop your form in the box just outside. So the event this evening is your opportunity to ask the key decision makers the questions that really matter to you. Now we've got some students from College Gwent here with roving microphones, and if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand and they will come to you. We try to get through as many questions as possible, but we are limited with time, and if your question isn't answered, write it on the card in your welcome pack along with your email address, put it in the box on your way out, and we will make sure that somebody gets back to you on that. So everyone's voice will be heard and we will be listening to all of your questions. Now, it might not have escaped your notice that in your packs you've got a list of people on the panel that tell you the Chief Constable's going to be here. Unfortunately, the Chief Constable wasn't able to attend, and so I'm really pleased that we've got the Assistant Chief Constable, Vicky, who's come along this evening, because she could be even better than the Chief. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to ask the panellists to introduce themselves, and then we'll go into questions.
Lovely, thank you, Commissioner. So as the Commissioner said, my name is Vicky Townsend. I'm one of the Assistant Chief Constables in Gwent Police, and my portfolio is the Head of Operations. And very often people ask me what that means, and it's an interesting portfolio. The easiest way to describe it is I look after anything that moves. So if it moves, I look after it. And if there's any questions that I can answer, then please ask them. I'm local to this area. I'm a Torvine officer through and through. I've worked here for 19 years and I'm really interested in some of the things that you have to say. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cherie Williams. I'm the Chief Exec of the Democracy and Boundary Commission Cymru. What we do is we're the public body that's responsible for drawing lines on maps. We draw up electoral wards for your local authority area. We draw up the Senedd constituencies. We draw up the parliamentary constituencies for Wales. We also have a very unpopular task of deciding how much councillors get paid every year, which I get a lot of hate mail about sometimes. And we also have a role in coordinating devolved elections. I'm Newport through and through. I'm Singaporean by birth. I moved to Wales 20 years ago. I'm still here.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone, I'm Lloyd. I'm a local boy, I live in Crossy, literally 2 minutes up the road, as you know. But yeah, my main job right now, I'm a TV presenter, which I really enjoy. I used to be a professional rugby player. I'm playing semi-pro at the minute. And yeah, I also make music, mainly in the Welsh language, which is something else I'm very passionate about.
And I'm Anthony Hunt. I'm a councillor up the road in Griffithstown, where I also live. I'm also the leader of the local council and the chair of the PSB, which is the group that brings together different public public service organisations and other people around Gwent who are concentrating on trying to make our areas better to live in.
So we've got some great panellists for you this evening. Has anybody got a starter question for our panellists? Here we are, just run up by there.
Okay, my question is, how many troops, or not troops, police officers do you have around Torvine?
So in total for Gwent, I've got 1,035 that are working in frontline roles. In Torvine, I've got a different mix-up of people. So I've got response officers. So response officers run at 12 a shift, and there's 5 shifts that cover Torvine. I've then got a neighbourhood team that work in Cumbraton and in Pontypool. So that's made up of sergeants, PCSOs, and neighbourhood ward managers. I've also got some specialist teams which look at demand across the force. So if there's demand in Torvine that need a specialist element, so it could be cybercrime, it could be serious violence. I've got detectives who will help out with that demand. And then I've got specialist operations resources, so roads policing unit and dog section. So at any one time, I will have at least 2 cars working on the roads policing unit and 2 dog handlers. And they cover the whole of the force, and some of those are based in Torvine as their normal primary duty. So lots of different people covering Torvine depending on what help or support is needed.
That's great. Thanks for that, Vicky. Oh, we've got another question just by there.
My question is, what are you doing about hate crime in the area?
Thank you. So, as I'm sure some of you will see, hate crime is in the press an awful lot lately. What I don't know some of you will see is what the vision is in Gwent. So our vision is to be a caring and inclusive organisation that's delivering for you as part of our communities. We do an awful lot of work in relation to hate crime, but not just hate crime, hate incidents, because it's really, really important to understand how our communities are impacted, what harm is coming to our communities, because very often there can be opportunities for us to either prevent or support people from becoming victims of further harm. But to be really clear, it's not something that we do alone. So we're really reliant on support of our partners, both in terms of sharing of the information, but then also in relation to supporting people to understand what's going on. So I've got some specific structures. I've got hate crime support officers, our PCSOs, our ward managers, which are all really, really keen in terms of how we support people that are victims of hate crime and hate incidents. The really important bit for us, and I suppose this is my ask of you today, and I'm not sure if I was allowed to ask you for help as a panel member, but is to report things if you see things or if you become aware of things, because us having the information is really key to us being able to respond and help appropriately. And we've got lots of opportunities where we can gather that information ourselves, but you are a really, really key and supportive partner in terms of helping us with some of that.
Outside of work, I sit as a magistrate in court in Gwent, and we deal with racially aggravated crimes. So just so you're aware, if that case comes to court and we find the person guilty, we are required to give them an uplift on their sentence. So for example, if they were supposed to go to prison for 12 weeks, we would increase it by a third to reflect the seriousness of the racially aggravated element of that crime.
Thank you, Shireen. And Vicky mentioned there about the work we do with our partners, and Shireen's just explained the work that the magistrates can do around that. And I know that both Lloyd and Anthony have also got a strong commitment to this and addressing these issues. Lloyd, you've got a very public platform. How can you help support in relation to this?
I think it's everyone here, all you young people, you are in the community or educated, conscientious young people, and ultimately this is your area. An area, well, I'm very passionate about. I've grown up here all my life, and it's very important that you young people coming through can, so when we talk about, like one of the questions about misogynistic attitudes, I think, or like if it's like a racial issue, like that brilliant question that we just had, I think it's on everyone to really lead from the front, and like I said, we're all educated people in here, and you are the future. I think it's very important, no matter how small it is, maybe it's in your friendship group. I have friends that friends, I don't really associate with them people anymore, but again, it's very common sometimes for little jokes here and there, like misogynistic jokes, and it to be normalised. It's important that we call these things out, because it is very, very common. I think social media as well, you need to be aware of this harmful content that you might see. Like, it might have loads of likes and loads of engagement, but ultimately, social media it's very useful. I'm very active on social media. It's very good for my career, and it's good as well to catch up with friends, etc. But it really can be a cesspit where anyone can post anything, mainly without a face associated to it. And it's important that you acknowledge, as educated young people, that is not the norm, despite if some silly post or some offensive post has all these thousands of likes. These aren't the members of society that you can relate to. So I think the main thing, like we're saying with the hate crimes and the misogyny, unfortunately, with social media being so broad, that's something that's always going to be there and always going to be around us, perpetuated by people who aren't valuable members of society. And it's easy to look like that's a common belief or whatever, with all the engagement they might have. But again, like I said, it's on you in real life, and on us, not just you, sorry, to acknowledge how toxic these behaviours are and call it out. And yeah, these people who do post stuff like that, again, they don't understand the people in society that all you young people in this room are. And the fact that you're in this room proves that point as well. So thank you all for coming.
Yeah, this is fundamental to me because I want Torbine to be a safe and fulfilling place for people to live, whatever their race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, disability, or whatever. It should be a safe space for us all to live and prosper in. There is too much hate in the world these days, especially online, where I think people are dehumanise other people, especially groups of people. Some of the conversations I have with people who will talk about groups of people in a way they'd never talk about individual people, and that I think is something that we've got to call out. My role, I think education's key. Number one, I think our schools have to be safe spaces for everyone, and no matter what their background. We've also got community safety teams who work very closely with the police. I think it's also key as a public service organisation that we make sure our people are properly trained and properly know how to do the right thing. And we work with an organisation called No Boundaries, partly run by a local guy called Sean Wharton, who used to be a professional footballer, a really good guy at training people in recognising their privilege. Just people can take it for granted. I've never been denied an opportunity because of the colour of my skin, for example. I shouldn't take that for granted because other people have had that situation. Some people use the word woke these days, and I know this sort of stuff is on the rise, unfortunately, but I don't find that an insult. If someone calls me woke, I think that's because I'm considerate of other people, and that's not a bad thing in life, generally, is it?
So I have two questions that are quite close to my heart. So I wanted to ask those. So the first one is that I have been diagnosed recently with autism, and I have found since being diagnosed, there is not a lot of support to those like myself. And the second question is that I have also moved into semi-independent living, and also since moving into semi-independent living, it's great, but then again, there is not a lot of support either. Thank you.
Okay, thank you ever so much for those questions, really important questions. And I know that everybody here is really committed to trying to do more to make sure that we include people in in all that we do and make sure that our services are available for everybody as well. I don't know, Vicky, do you want to talk about how we try to make services inclusive and accessible for everyone?
So for research department, we talked about our vision being empowering and inclusive, and we've done quite a lot internally, so with our staff and with people that we have working with us, because actually what we find is lots of people are undiagnosed, and as a result the support is not there for them. We offer that now within the organisation, and then we look at what adjustments that we can put in place to support them, because that's then hugely advantage for them, not just in their work and their professional life, but also in their home and their personal life. That inclusivity is not just specific to us internally in Gwent, it is about how we treat people that we meet, members of our community, victims, people who are potential offenders for offences. It encompasses everybody. So the service that we roll out in terms of being inclusive is how do we treat people who may have autism or who may be neurodiverse through another mechanism, if they come into custody, if we come into contact with them as a victim, if we come into contact with them as a witness. And lots of the training that we now offer our staff is around how to make sure that the service they're providing to people that came into contact with is recognising that different people might need a different level of support, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. So, and we are all different. So I'm very much a visual learner, so digital cyber, it's fantastic. I love the advancements in modern technology. I'm a paper and pen girl, and that's the way that I remember and I retain information. We're all different, and I think that's really important. So as an organisation, hugely important to us, internally for our staff and externally for our community. And what the Chief would say if he was here is, for us, that's about threading it through everything we do. So it's not something that we do as an add-on. It's not something to say that we've delivered this piece of training once a year and now everybody knows what it is that we need to be to understand how we support people. This should be a part of everything that we do and every approach that we take, because we really do recognise that we're made up of our community, we serve our community, and in order to do that, we need to be recognition of people's needs.
So I'm going to come from the perspective of as a public body employer. So lots of the Welsh government sponsored bodies we've been undertaking training to it's not just about the people we serve, but also our staff. It's not good me telling you, oh, you've got autism, apply for jobs with us, you'll be fine. When actually my organisation isn't ready or not suited for you, or our systems are not good enough for you, our processes are not good enough for you. So one of the things that we've been doing in the past 12 months actually is improving our training provision to staff, helping them understand how to support people with different types of neurodiversity, making sure systems are in place to support you. And what I think has really changed, 10 years ago, people would have never disclosed prior to interview if they had a diagnosis, whereas now, more and more people are actually putting it on their application form, which is incredible, because that means, as an employer, I can make sure the interview is set up to suit you, so I can get the best out of you. And that, for me, is our commitment in the public sector.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a really thought-provoking challenge. Support for young people with ASD is something that's very personal to me, and it's something that keeps me up at night as well. And I think there's a couple of things that we could try and do. First of all, in the decisions we make around our budget, I think more money is important for that support, so that it's there. But also, as local representatives, that we speak up for services like that, because very often the debate publicly, and this is a refreshing change, is around just things like potholes or bin collections, and not around the services that not everyone uses, but that are really important for those who do use them. So I think speaking out for those services is vitally important. But it's also about how we shape the services to give people the support they need, not the support that we think they need. I think that's key, and we work closely with groups like Hope GB to try and shape that. And as I say, this is something personal to me. My two of my nieces have got ASD diagnoses, And this has driven me to ask some questions about how we operate as an organisation. We've got a diverse minds group that now operates in Torvine, and that's us trying to utilise I know it's a bit of a cliche, utilise the sort of superpowers of people with neurodiverse minds. How do we make the most of your talents? Because our staff who are neurodiverse can think about things in a different way and can challenge some of the presumptions we make. And for me, I think that's a principle that can be expanded out to the wider community. How do we make the most of everyone's talents in our borough? How do we support everyone succeeding to thrive, not just a narrow spectrum of people? So really keen to use that group, certainly to challenge some of the things that we do and to make sure that that people who are neurodiverse can contribute and be supported.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, and thank you for that really great question. We've got some questions there in the third row.
Hello. So we are from the BBC here, and my question is kind of short. So how do we? So do you believe there has been an increase in young people conforming to bad behaviour just to fit in and be accepted? And how does that get stopped when it becomes a norm? For example, a lot of young people conform to doing drugs. How do you stop that peer pressure? That's my question.
I think one of the best people to start the answer to this question is somebody who's very influential to young people. So over to you, Nate.
Great question. Growing up in this area, I love it. It's a great area for me. I think, from my perspective, from spending a lot of time here, as I said, growing up here all my life, it is, and I don't think this is just Cumbrana or Gwent. I think it's probably a problem around a lot of South Wales and around a lot of working class towns and small communities where there is probably I would say a drug problem, or maybe drugs, especially in my peer group. And like my little brother, he's 18. I've got another little brother who's 15, and it's sad to say, but they're telling me about people their age in school taking drugs and doing X, Y, Z, and I can go to the pub, and it's unfortunate, but it is around. I think I can't speak on behalf of what these great people on the panel are doing about it. I don't know, but it is, I think, a problem, I would say. But I think that is just society. I think it's probably normalised a lot, and I hear what you say about the peer pressure. I think in regards to peer pressure, I know it can be hard, but the but for me really stops with you. And maybe if you're in a situation where you are being peer pressured to do these things, then you need to evaluate who your friendship group are. And that's definitely something I experienced growing up. Like all my boys are Cumbrian boys I grew up with, and different people do tend to, as you'll start realising now when you're in 10 years' time, you may maybe not be associating with the same people you associate with now, because people do take different paths in this part of growing up. But again, unfortunately, I think society in the UK as a whole, it is probably normalised drug use, recreational drug use to different extents. But yeah, like I said, in regards to the peer pressure, it's just been strong enough, and maybe thinking, why am I in this situation? And again, I can't speak about what's being done about it or whatever, because it's a massive problem. But I feel like from being in situations like that growing up and seeing the effects it can have on people, and looking at people now compared to when I was your age, yeah, it is just a thing of being, as you are all very young, intelligent people who are going to be leaders in this community. Yeah, again, same with misogyny and hate and stuff. You need to lead from the front, call stuff out, and just be careful who you surround yourself with, because unfortunately I don't think it's really a problem you can really ever get rid of. I don't know if that's sounding quite grim, but I think it's the truth.
And for everybody who's here tonight, I don't know if you've seen, but as part of the information we got outside, we work with an organisation called Fearless. And if you are under pressure to do any of these things, you can speak confidentially to Fearless, you can share your concerns with them, and you can remain completely anonymous. So know that that is there for you. Big shout out to Fearless, and they're here if you want to pick up any further information from them, because it is an issue, isn't it? And it's something we take seriously. We might know about something, we might see something, we might be really concerned about it, not know what to do, but also be really fearful of any reprisals against us as well. So, and that's why we work so closely with Fearless, because we want everybody to feel safe and to be confident that they can share that information to keep other people safe as well.
Yeah, so thank you. So I've got a couple of different hats. So, and the question is really interesting to me. So as I said, I'm the head of ops for Gwent, ACC. My role naturally carries risk, and I get to see an awful lot of what goes on across policing, not just in Gwent, but nationally as well, because I hold some different portfolios. I'm also a member of 3. I've got a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And because of that, I think when I see some things in work, sometimes I think, what could this mean for my children? How would my children be impacted by this? And then we see what I see as a growing threat in terms of malinformation, misinformation, disinformation, because social media has got so many positives if used correctly, and yet at the same time it can be so cruel, and it's a real dangerous way of exacerbating peer pressure if used inappropriately. So it's a real fine balance for the young people of today. And I'm talking about my children there as opposed to yourselves sat in front of me. And I think the conversations I have with my children are just really open and honest ones in relation to what I would expect them to do. So I would expect them to be kind, I would expect them to be honest, I would expect them to ask questions. And we see glimmers of hope all of the time. And I've pitched that phrase from a marvellous lady that I spoke to earlier, that you will see at the back later on if you didn't see her earlier. Because by sharing that information, by sharing that concern, by sharing those worries, this is how we root out some of this pressure. And to be clear, there's investigations that have occurred in Gwent, some of them local to Torvai, where we've dealt with drug-related offences, where we've dealt with violence-related offences, that have come about because a young person has said, that is not acceptable, why is that happening? So it is happening in terms of people taking that stand and saying, do you know what, that is not good enough. And I suppose with my dual hat on, I'm hoping for that to continue, and that's certainly the conversations that I'm having with my 3.
I see the other side as a magistrate when you've got 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds appearing in court because they've been arrested for selling drugs, etc. And inevitably, there's always their parents in the courtroom upset, crying because things are, the Crown prosecution will say it looks, the sentence will be more than 2 years, etc. So even we can't deal with the magistrates court. We're going to send it to Crown Court, and we'll have to put that young person in remand. I've visited prisons. It's not a nice place to be in. Even the toughest grown men will cry on their first night there. It is lonely, it is scary, and you've got to figure your life out in prison. It's not a nice place to be in. And I think the more we can do to stop people from getting to that point, is where we've got to be investing our money in.
Just come back to something Lloyd said in the previous question. Don't let us kid you that we were all angels when we were younger. I think young people these days is one of the oldest slogans that's reappeared throughout the generations. I used to get told it when I was young by older people, so don't let people my age preach to you as if they were always angels when they were young. And the other thing is that not all the problems young people get the blame for are the fault of young people. I think sometimes you're easy scapegoats. So we should give more support and set standards, but I think we also need to work together to give people hope and opportunities, because I think nothing cuts through peer pressure better than people having hope or people having opportunities. Peer pressure, I think, thrives on people feeling hopeless and that they've not got opportunities. So the more opportunities I think we can give young people to have a positive future, I think the better. And that's a challenge for us as a public service board. And just lastly, something I always say to my young people, whether I'm coaching them or whether they've got the misfortune of being my kids, is that, you've got to remember that social media is full of bull. I won't finish the word. It's full of bull crap, isn't it? There's lots of people trying to give an idealised image of what their life is like and project that. Just don't swallow it, because it's nonsense, it's fake, and just be yourself.
Thanks for that. Some more questions? Oh, we got so many questions. This is fantastic.
So it's not like on the personal experience. When you're in counselling, like CAMS, it's for like a couple of weeks, but like you're still struggling afterwards. You're gonna go like on another waiting list for a couple months. But is there any like immediate help after if you still need it?
Can you just say the first part of your question again, please?
So this is from like personal experience. So when you're struggling with like mental health and stuff, and you go to like counselling, like CAMS, but you're still struggling after you've finished your course, is there any immediate help afterwards?
I think support for young people and around mental health is something that's really, really important, and something that we would all say as panellists, that there just is there does need further investment. Anthony, you have the oversight of this.
Yeah, we try and provide counselling support for young people, but there are gaps. I acknowledge that, and that's a really good point about if people get some initial help, but then there's a bit of a gap behind that. What do we do to try and fill that in? So that's certainly something I'll take back as a point to raise.
There is a wide range of support. If people are also experiencing issues around their mental health and their victims as well, there's support for victim support that we fund as well. So people do. I know it's really hard to try and come forwards when you feel you need that help, but please come forwards, because we can work together to try and make a difference there. Another question? There are so many hands, I'm going to let the roving mic people choose. I can see you right in the middle.
Something that did affect my mental health as well, quite badly, is I'm disabled, I'm autistic, and it's so difficult to access services unless you have someone to talk to the people directly on your behalf, and even then it's so really, really difficult to access the services. Even mental health in general, that's really difficult, and people keep telling me, go to 111 to do like option 2, and I've noticed that it's not, it doesn't really work. The people don't get it, they just tell you to all calm down. It's not as easy as that. And constantly getting rejected from those services, even though I've got a good cause of concern, it's just so hard.
Thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for sharing your concerns around that with us. In terms of what we do on a day-to-day basis, we wouldn't be directly involved with that, but I can make you a promise here and now that when Anthony and I go back to the Public Service Board, we'll be raising this and raising the concerns that young people have told us about tonight in terms of mental health and support with our colleagues at the Public Service Board, because we've got a commitment to work in partnership together to make sure that we give people, help people in Gwent to have the best outcomes they can in their lives. And we're hearing loud and clear from you this evening that you're telling us that there are issues around this, so we will raise that.
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? Because sometimes the services we run are very well intentioned, but because we're big organisations, we become big clunky bureaucracies that provide services and expect people to fall into line around those services, right, rather than trying to build the services around where people are at. I think that's a challenge and certainly something that I'll take back. So if you want to catch us afterwards to have a longer chat, then you're welcome to. But that's certainly a message I'll take back.
Thanks for that. Who's next?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, how can police enforce no littering dropping? Is it something the police can control? Because I've noticed other countries have little to no litter. I feel it's bad for the environment.
So thank you. So you're right. Other countries don't seem to have the same problem as we do. We don't deal with littering as a privacy agency. It mostly sits with the local authority in terms of the approaches that are taken within the areas. There are some times when a multi-agency response is required, and that's often when there's fly tipping, where we see quite significant impacts within our countryside. But again, local authority does generally lead on that subject matter area. So I'll pass over to Anthony if that's okay.
I think the international comparison is an interesting one because you see the countries that have the best records have a culture of zero tolerance of littering that we don't have. Look, it's our responsibility to try and deal with it. We've got excellent volunteer groups around Keep Wales Tidy who do a great job helping us. Our teams go around dealing with fly tipping and littering as well. But that all costs money, of course, and it's money I'd much rather spend on other services rather than on dealing with the consequences of people being selfish and greedy enough to just dump stuff. Whether that's because they don't want to pay to get it disposed of properly or they're just inconsiderate of their neighbours. I think there's one other thing we can do, as well as things like community skips and things like that, and that's really investing in the fabric of our communities. A lot of this has slipped over the past decade and a half, because we've tried to prioritise funding to other things. But I think when you spend a bit of money tidying up a neighbourhood, people are less inclined then to let it slip, and will enforce things more. We tried to do things around Pontypool in the last few months, like having more public art, for example. And we were told several times that when we got the artist to paint the dragon on the Riverside car park in Pontypool, that would last days before it got ruined. It didn't, because people like it and people own it. So the more we can do that sort of thing, I think the better. But yeah, I think it's a real cultural issue that people just shouldn't excuse other people being selfish enough to spoil the environment for others.
I mentioned earlier that I'm from Singapore originally, and we are a very, very clean city because of two fronts. Number one is that the government will fine you a lot of money if you're caught littering. We're talking about 500 quid or so if you're caught littering. If you're a repeat offender, you have to wear an orange jumpsuit with the word correction work order on the back of your jumpsuit and pick up litter in public, which is incredibly embarrassing. But also, there's a huge push from a very young age where kids are taught not to litter, to take pride in your community, in where you live, etc. So even I've been here for 20 years, and I guarantee you, I've never littered in my life because I think that's really, really a bad thing to do because you live there, other people live there. It's a mindset as well to say you've had your McDonald's wrapper and you just chuck it on the floor for somebody else to pick up. That's just not acceptable, and I think it's a mindset that we've got to push as well as something punitive. I don't even want to be doing orange jumpsuits. It's not a really good look, so I'd rather not go down that route. But it is possible to live in a very clean place.
Next question.
Are you, and if you are, how are you tackling social media's effect on an individual's body positivity?
Can I just ask you to ask again? I'm sorry, we're struggling to hear the mics.
Are you, and if you are, how
how are you tackling social media's effect on an individual's body positivity?
I think that's a great question because that illustrates the impact that social media can have on all aspects of our lives, doesn't it? That's so important, and it is an issue, I think, for us all.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think social media is so vast, like it's almost unfathomable, like how you can get caught in some deep dark corners, of course, but also everything that's getting promoted onto your screens for whatever reason. It is a tricky one. I post a lot of fitness content. I think with the body positivity thing, I'm not sure how you really can tackle it because, again, it is such a vast thing, isn't it, social media? I think it's healthy and it's benefited me a lot as well. It's not a necessity for you to have or maybe monitor how much you use it or the type of things you're looking at and try and take charge of it that way, because I think it's really something that's so big and overwhelming that it can't really be tailored to you personally. I think I've benefited a lot from maybe taking breaks from social media, maybe taking breaks from my phone and taking charge of it that way, because again, it's something that's always going to be around, and if anything, it is growing more. So yeah, if it's affecting your mental health, I know it might be easier said than done, but maybe just think about, do I really need to be on my phone this much? Maybe I'll put a timer on this app. Maybe I don't need to go on my Instagram today. And if it's affecting you, then it's not a matter of life or death. Just don't go on it. That's good, and that's not trying to be patronising, because that's something that I've experienced before as well. So yeah, it's a great question, but yeah, if it's not serving you, don't use it. And again, I'm not being patronising. That's something that I've done myself. So that'd be my advice.
Yeah, very much so. And again, just remember that everything you see online is an idealised caricature of reality. It's not reality. That person who looks perfect has probably had their photo touched up by AI. They don't really look like that. Their life really isn't as perfect as they're trying to say it. I do think there is a big bit of work that government needs to do to get tough on some of these social media companies. The algorithms they drive, the content they drive people towards, of all ages, can be really unhealthy. And I think they can do something to change that. So I think governments need to talk tough, because some of these companies are making millions and millions of pounds off the backs of human misery. So yeah.
You're assessing the information going to be true, that the information has come from a person or a source that you know or that you recognise, that you're expecting that information. And our very simple advice to anybody is, if what somebody's trying to put you into doesn't hit those three factors, then take a big step back and away from it. But your question is really interesting, because whilst we've seen a rise, not along the lines of the 20% that you're seeing in terms of the whole national picture, but what we're finding is it's becoming more prevalent because more people now have access to things like social media, phones, network devices, which wasn't necessarily the case so many years ago. We provide information in the same way around advice. However, you have now got me thinking in terms of, we have always targeted a particular audience set, and whether or not we need to make some changes in light of that changing pattern. So Sarah, you've probably given me an action there to take away, and I am really grateful. It's a really good question.
I'm coming at this as a parent of a 16-year-old and 11-year-old, and I think, the adults in the lives who are responsible for giving younger people those devices that make them accessible and actually vulnerable to scammers have a responsibility to be very clear with the child what's expected. You can use your phone for this, this, and this. If you get any messages about a certain type, you come straight to me and check first. If you get a phone call from a number you do not recognize, do not answer it. If somebody texts you offering you a job, you don't reply, you block them, and and I think whilst I'm very respectful of young person's right to privacy, you still need to be able to check and make sure that they are protected. There is a responsibility of the adults in the lives of those young people to offer that level of protection.
Yeah, I'll add something quickly. It seems like on a daily basis I'm inundated with texts with a link I've just won this, or someone is using your bank account. It is the nature, unfortunately. There's so much positive things with technology, but again, because we're so accessible now, it's just something, unfortunately, that we've got to live with. I think my only message would be, when I was about 15, I was obsessed with FIFA, loved it. And I put my email address into a website to get a 99 Cristiano Ronaldo. Right, next thing I know, my mum's got a £500 bill from someone hacking into my account. So I think my main message is, if it's too good to be true, then it really probably is. And I think that's just a thing in general. And again, you're all going to experience it. You're going to get texts saying you've won this, or someone's trying to hack this, click this link, blah, 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 blah. It's one of those things where you've just got to be aware and try not to be too naive to those types of things, because unfortunately I think it's something that's unavoidable nowadays.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes something we underestimate as older people. When I was young, when I was in school, a scam or someone trying to deal you out of something was quite obvious because you had the cash in your hand and they were trying to get it out of you. Whereas now money is far more complex than it was. I think we need to do more in schools to catch up with that, and to teach people financial skills and those critical reasoning skills. It's not just young people who get scammed, it's people of all ages. But I think we need to do more to equip people, as Lloyd said, that if something's too good to be true, it probably is, and to encourage people to cross-reference everything you get told, whether that's financial scams or whether it's misinformation that goes about online. Just try and cross-reference something, because if someone's telling you something, think what's their motive for telling you that, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to kid you. So just be very careful. But no, I do think we can do more in schools to help that.
Sorry, I'm going to take a selfish moment to put my prevention hat on as well, because one of the things that I tell my children and some of the young people that I volunteer with is that you've got to be very mindful as well about who's got information about you, who do you want to have information about you, and some of that might not be instantly obvious. So things like when you go to a shop, you might buy some new clothes. Very often now shops will ask you whether or not you want them to send you an email receipt or you want a paper receipt. You've got to ask yourself the question, you're sharing your personal data there, your email address. Do they need to have it? Do you want them to have it? And ask yourself that question in relation to any information that you share about yourself. Because if someone doesn't need to have your information, then don't share it. It's yours. It's an opportunity to keep yourself safe by keeping that information private to you. So I am always that difficult person in the queue. If you ever see me and I'm holding you up, I apologise, because I always say, I love the people version. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I want to say a huge thank you to everybody for your brilliant questions this evening. I think that was a great one for us to draw this to a close, but I'm really conscious we've had loads of hands up and we haven't been able to answer those questions. So please, put them on the card in the pack, pop them in the box on the way out. We will make sure you get answers, because the whole point of coming together this evening is so that you can have your questions answered and we can listen to what you've got to say. And it's been so good to hear so many questions on so many different issues. If you've been affected by anything that you've heard this evening, and we have had some mental health concerns raised, please speak to your teacher or youth worker or someone you can trust. And in your packs, there is a list of organisations that can help you too. So please don't feel that you're alone. There is help there for you. We'll be making a recording of the session available on our OPCC YouTube channel. Yes, we've got a YouTube channel. You can watch all of our meetings if you want. If you want to see us holding the Chief Constable to account, get online and have a look at what we do, asking him questions on your behalf. It's all there. But if you just want to check in and just have a look at the footage of tonight, that's where you'll find it. And we'll be sending a visual recording out to everybody who's been here today. Thank you so much for your questions. And I want to say a massive thank you to our panellists for giving up their evening to come along and talk to us, to spend time with us. You are the most important people. You really are. We've made a huge commitment, and certainly as the Peace and Crime Commissioner, I've made a commitment to work with young people and to build a charter for them and to listen to what you've got to say. And then when I've listened to what you've got to say, to bring my influence to bear, to try and make those changes that you want to see made. And that is the same for all of the people on the panel. That's why we're here. We're here for you. We're here to listen for you. So massive thank you to everybody who's been involved. And a huge thank you to colleague Gwent for hosting us here in this brilliant learning centre tonight. It's been absolutely fantastic. Our volunteers have been brilliant. We couldn't have done this without your support. So thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed the evening. Please remember to fill in the surveys and pop that you can find in your packs on the way out. Please don't walk away with any unanswered questions. I know I've said it already, but we're here to listen to you. If you've got something you want an answer to, pop it on that card. We'll make sure that you get it. We absolutely will. So I'd just like to ask you now, before we all say goodbye, if you join me in just giving our panellists a round of applause, just to say